Picture this. Underneath the margins, your words can breathe. Got your listeners tilting isosceles the way you holding volcanic quills, spitting decrees. Better believe it flows like these. You got gills, screaming at daffodils or dreaming in mandrills, derivative of skills. You're built in the workshop, rocking with Ra. Cause in life, the woodshed don't stop. It don't stop. It don't stop. Don't stop.
Hi, everyone. My name is Coach Patty Medina. I am the college material head coach here at Words, Beats, and Life. We are here and happy to have you for our first 2021-2022 panel for our college material information panel. So today we will be going over College 101. Our college material program is an incredibly important initiative within our academy that helps our young people gain access to resources and help them learn the importance of education and planning for college after high school. So before we get started, we would like to thank our sponsors, Herb Block Foundation, Arts Forward Fund, DC Commission of Arts and Humanities, and Petco. So I want to first introduce someone that is very important here at Words, Beats, and Life. We have one of our directors, academy directors here. Her name is Serena. She will be coming on and she'll be explaining why college is important. Welcome, Serena. Thank you for joining us on our first panel. We're super excited. So first off, what is college?
Hey, Patty. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited for this first panel of college material this session. So, to me, I view college for more than one purpose. So it's twofold, right? It helps you learn knowledge and skills to attain the job and career that you want in your future, but it also helps you build life skills. So it's not just about learning education and skills, but also just like learning how to develop as a person. And it's just a time to really truly invest in yourself and commit to learning what you want. Like, it's not like high school. You aren't told what to learn, you get to choose. And that's when you get to choose your own majors and minors and things like that. And a lot of times we don't really know what we want to do, but that's why you have general education credits that you take, and you can take a wide range of things to try and figure out what you really want to focus on. So yeah, I just really think that college is a place to allow yourself to learn, think, grow, and decide what you really want your future to look like.
Yeah, no, it's I think from everyone that we've talked to thus far, it's been a great experience and a learning experience. So how does one determine if college and university is a good fit for them?
I think that all young people should at least try college, or truly just know that it's for them, right? It's not for anybody. College is something that all of our young people can attain, and we want to help them do that. So reach for the stars, and if you fall somewhere, in the middle there, that's totally fine too. But at least reach for, gaining this education and gaining these life skills for yourself. And a lot of times the fears about college are usually because our young people don't actually know what college is, or they don't know how to get there. So, part of what we really try to do with college material, as you know, is to really help guide them through the necessary steps to make these choices for themselves, and to really just teach them and enlighten them on what college really is and how they can truly get there and afford it and all these different things.
Yeah, so you mentioned the fears of attending college. So let's say someone doesn't have that support system or a background of family that attended college. So they're first in their family to attend college. Or they say, you know what, I don't know what I want to do. I haven't decided on a major, so I don't want to waste my time with going to college. What would you tell a young adult that is still in between deciding whether they should go to college or not, and they haven't decided a major, or they don't have the family support?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I honestly would say I would ask them like, well, really why? Because to me, that's not like a great reason, right? Like, so you don't have support from maybe your immediate family, but you'll have support from community. You'll have support from, teachers and, people like us in neighborhood organizations like Words Beats in Life, where we're here to invest in you and help you figure these things out. And a lot of times family does want to support you. They just don't know how. Especially if they've never gone to college. They don't know what it takes. They're looking sometimes to us to help, enlighten them and their children on how they can get there and what college really is, and making the smartest decisions to get there. I think as long as you have a few people behind you that would really help you to like go through the application process, even just picking, because there's so many different types of colleges. I think that's enough to at least make the decision of, yeah, I really want to go to college.
Yeah. And sometimes, family members try to impose their own fears on the students because they wanted to attend, or maybe there's a financial stress on the family. So they expect the student, to be the savior for the family. And so college for them is one of those things. Like, what do you tell a family member that, hey, college will be an investment that the return on investment comes later, in that support system.
Yeah, I always view college as an investment in yourself, right? And a time for a young person to really take a stance in their learning and their future, because you're literally now in the driver's seat of your own future and your own education. And that's a weird place for our young people to be in, because they're told what they're supposed to learn. They're told what they have to do, how they do it. But college, nobody's there to tell you that. You pick your classes, you pick what you want to give your time and energy to, and you have to make yourself get up and go to those classes. Your parents are not there, especially if you live on campus and you've moved away, it's really on you. So it's really a shift in the way that young people have to take, a real stance in their own learning, but it's also a shift for the adults in their lives to really trust and believe that their young people are going to make good decisions for their own future, and they could be different from yours or what you would hope for them, but that doesn't mean that they won't be successful.
Yeah. And that's where you kind of circle back on, how you said college for you was a space where you learned life skills, and for a lot of young adults, they've never been away from home. So college and an experience being away from home is a great experience. So we're kind of gauging with that topic in mind, like, how do you decide, or what goes into the decision of attending a in-state school, an out-of-state school, an HBCU, PWI, hopefully you can go into that. You attended Penn State, so your experience in regards to that. So looking back, or what are the options that are available for our students to be able to decide, especially if it's their first time away from home?
Yeah, so I know that there are like surveys or like little tests you can take online. I think it's like on the College Board website, where you can like click off all these things, right? Like if you want to be in a city, if you want to be rural, if you want to go to HBCU, if you want like all these different things, and you click it off, and they'll tell you some types of schools that may be fitting for what you're asking for. But yeah, there's predominantly white institutions, also known as PWI, historically Black colleges, HBCUs, and then state versus private and all of that. So a lot of times, the state versus private thing can be about money. Because if you're in state and you're from that state, you're going to pay a whole lot less to go to that school than somebody that's coming from another state going to that same state school. And same thing with like just private institutions, they tend to just be more expensive. And then like rural versus city, right? Especially with our young people being from the DMV area, like if you're from DC, you might not want to go to a Penn State, like where I went to, where you're literally, Penn State's the whole town, right? And like, we're literally in the mountains, like in the middle of nowhere. It's not a city. There's no city. The closest city is like Philadelphia, which is like two hours away. So like, if like you are a city kid and you want to stay in that city type environment, then look for schools in the city. If like I was a suburban kid who lived close by a city, like I knew I didn't want to go to school in the city, because that's not me. I don't want to live in the city. I don't currently live in the city. I work there, So like just knowing that about yourself and knowing what type of diversity you need. Because for me, I didn't think enough on going to a predominantly white institution or an HBCU, mainly because like HBCUs weren't presented to me in the way that I feel they are now to our young people. And it could be awesome if that's something that's really like meaningful to you and you want to be in classes with people that look like you, like-minded, and that's super important to you, then do that. But for me, it's like I didn't realize my need for community with people that look like me until I was in a situation at Penn State where it's 40,000 students and 2% make up minorities, you know, and I'm in rooms of 300 and I'm the only person of color, you know, so that happened for me later on. And it also really fueled my desire to want to be in a sorority and to be in these, you know, multicultural organizations, because that's where I found my family and my community. So it just knowing that about yourself, like, you know, like, is that something you need across the board? Or is that something that you can find community within, you know, within that minority?
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people need to really be mindful of that, you know, because I wasn't. I kind of went to Penn State on a whim. So, so I didn't really fully think that decision out. And I also didn't think about money. I didn't think about needing to afford it because I had the privilege of my dad paying for it until he no longer could. And then it was like, how do I stay here? So, you know, then I had to think about money, but I was now halfway through my education. So just thinking about all these things up front so that when you leave, you set yourself up both socially, financially, and even just like emotionally and educationally, like in the best place that you can be at.
Yeah. And that might seem like a little overwhelming for someone that is within a household, you know, or they've been pretty much kept within that household and they haven't really learned a lot about themselves. And so a lot of times, like even I had the same experience where I kind of just went to whatever school offered me the most financial aid. I didn't really look into demographics. I didn't really look into where it was even located. And so did you do a campus tour before you went to Penn State or no? Yeah, same.
I did not. So I I did not. But what you're saying, where you went, where you got the most money to go, that was how I made my decision on law school. And that's kind of how I decided to go to like a kind of no-name law school, because the name, I didn't need it anymore because I had a large alumni base from Penn State and from my sorority that I was like, I don't necessarily need that to do what I want. So I just went where it was like the cheapest, even though I still owe a whole lot of money. But, you know, they gave me the most financial support than other places. But no, I did not. I did not see Penn State's campus until a month before I was getting ready to move in. And they used to have something called FitCap. And you go for like your orientation for the weekend, and then your parents in a month later. And that was the first time I ever saw the campus. It's also the first day that I met my best friend. Like we met there. We were the only two women of color in the room. We started talking and we've been best friends since. So it was also a place where it's like I found somebody really early on and we just like latched onto each other, and neither one of us has gotten rid of one another since then. But I would definitely say it's important to do that though, because I was supposed to go to Dartmouth and I hated it. I visited and hated it. So that's how I was like, Dad, I think I'm going to go to Penn State. So, you know, it was a different option for me. So I think it's very important to do that though.
Yeah. And these are great topics. And as you know, we'll be discussing them throughout our academy, our College Material Academy. And we'll be talking about the experience and how to choose a college with more detail in upcoming panels. But what's one thing, and I know we had this conversation earlier, you and I, but what's one thing you would have told your senior self, you know, in deciding a college and a university? What is one thing that you would tell your younger self before deciding, or once you decided on a institution?
I think I would say like chill out and listen to the people that came before you. Because 17-year-old Serena just thought that she knew everything. And then I got thrown out in this world and was like, I know nothing and I don't want to be an adult, you know, like, so yeah, I think, and just like, I stressed a whole lot, and I think I missed out on some of like the more fun times because I was so worried about like being the best and overachieving. So I would really tell myself to chill out and just like listen to the people that are there to support you.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. I mean, it's awesome that you were able to look, in retrospect, you look and you're like, okay, I overcame that. But again, I could have saved myself so much more, less stress had I listened to those that you said came before you and have experienced that. So, I think it's an amazing experience. We have the same mentality as far as like, yeah, college is difficult, the tough and the struggles that everyone talks about, we all go through them. But I think what you learn and what you come out of college experience, aside from an education, is that you really learn about yourself through trials and tribulations, and knowing how to cook or how to like feed yourself. And a lot of times there are things that we didn't know, and it becomes a survival of the fittest situation. And it's great. And Andy Perez says, I think it's a good idea to talk to someone that is already going to that school and already graduated from that school before deciding to go there. I agree, Andy. I agree. I think, did you talk to anyone, any alumni or any current students when you attended Penn State?
Yeah, so nobody from my school had really gone there. Except there was one young man that actually lived in my neighborhood. He was a little bit older than me, and he was like a source of support. Like he met me like my first day of class and like would help me out, and we're still good friends to this day. But there weren't too many people from my town or my high school that went to Penn State. But I was weird, and I kind of liked that because I grew up in a town where my dad grew up and everybody. So it was like I wanted to like kind of not be known and make my own, identity. So I enjoyed that part. But to Andy's point, that's a really that's a really great way to approach it. I've actually had someone recently reach out to me about one of their mentees that's currently at Penn State who's struggling with the lack of diversity and like how to navigate those waters. And he just is like shell shocked because he's in like the country and like farmland. Yeah. And I saw that happen a lot to my friends that were from like New York City or even California, and it's freezing cold the first week in October, all of those things you don't always think about, that are going to help you be able to function as a person, to really put your best efforts forward. So that's great advice, Andy.
Yeah. And Zaira agrees as well that it helped her so much when she was making a decision. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, but Andy again says going to college is a great opportunity, opens a lot of doors. While it might not be for everyone, people should definitely try it out and not rule it out of their options. And I agree. I tell people even to this day, like, you have an opportunity here, especially if you have a situation where it's, fully funded. Like, why not try it out? Why not see what you would find out about yourself? So again, thank you so much, Serena, for sharing your experiences. I'm excited to hear more throughout our panels and our upcoming panels, which we will be posting the topics. But again, college, we agree that college is for everyone, and it's something that we want to continue to promote and for our youth, and continue to advise our youth to consider. So moving forward into the next subject, obviously we talked about what is college. Now we want to talk about how can we afford college and how do we apply to college. So I'm going to bring on a good friend of mine who is a former college admin, current author, philanthropist, just a former college athlete. Marla Mason is going to come on. We're going to talk about the basics of going to college. Marla, welcome. How are you?
Hello, Patty. Thank you so much. I'm doing well. How are you today?
We're doing well. So you heard Serena. We're going to kind of piggyback on some of the things that she talked about. But first and foremost, everyone can afford college. We're in that agreement, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So now, what are some things, obviously, before we get into the who can afford colleges, what are some things that if I'm considering applying for college, what is the process? Just like the basics. Obviously, as I told you guys before, we're going to have panels where we go into more detail with each and every single of these aspects. So Marla's going to kind of give us the blanket of it. But what are some basics, like to-do list of applying to college?
So first and foremost, you definitely want to make sure that you want to start applying in the beginning of your senior year. Most colleges the cutoff date is in January. The dates vary, but you want to keep your eye on that depending on what school you want to go to or you're applying to. And you also want to keep in mind that FAFSA's deadline is in March. And that's very important because FAFSA is going to help you generate the funds if you don't have them to pursue your college career.
Yeah, no. And so, and you mentioned, with FAFSA, we apply. And when we were in college, you filled out a FAFSA. You had to ask your parents for their book of tax records and, all that. So tell us now how easy it is to, not easy, but how less tedious it is to apply.
Yeah, so before it was quite tedious and strenuous. You kind of had to get your parents to feel comfortable enough to put their information onto a site. And mind you, parents weren't really familiar with using sites, how parents are now. So it's kind of, they were very leery about it. But now it's as simple as putting in your parents' social, and everything uploads into the system from there. They don't have to worry about having the most recent tax information to actually scan and then send out and make sure it's the correct and up-to-dated if there's any amended type of things going on. So everything updates by itself. You just put in their social security number and easy peasy.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned that for most colleges, the deadline's like in January. I know that for some of the other schools, we're from California. And so a lot of the early admission happened in November of our senior year. And so people were applying even earlier than that. So in this case, you want to be proactive instead of reactive, right? You want to get everything turned in. So what are some things that you recommend that they start preparing and having in line to be able to apply to these colleges?
I think that, to be honest, if you want to really be extra prepared, is you're going to start doing this your junior year of high school. And you want to really start focusing in on what your extracurricular activities are going to be. You want to start focusing in on maybe starting to take your SATs and your ACTs if the colleges that you're applying to want those scores, so that you get your feet wet and how good you need to do. And so you're not limiting, you don't have a limited space of time, but you have more of a time to get used to the testing process. Start working on your personal, I guess, portfolio is a way to say it. And I would say junior year is a great way to start doing that, and kind of determining what is important to you. Small school versus big school, location wise, do you want to stay local? Do you want to go away from home? Money is always a huge part of it. So if you want to go to, if you're going to a 4-year Ivy League that's across the country, you need to start thinking about what it's going to take to get you there on all these aspects.
Yeah, and the requirements are different because we were talking earlier about the ACT and SAT and ACT scores, and so the basic, not the basic, but the average score is a 20.7 and 21, which will get you into a state school. But if you're trying to go to an Ivy League school, we were even in all of it's 32 to 35 for the ACT.
Right, for the ACT.
And then the SAT, it's when we were in high school or in applying for colleges, it was like, oh, you had over 1,000. It was good. Now it's like 1,200. And the max is 1,600, and you have people getting a full 1,600 score on it. Yeah,
perfect scores.
Yeah. So it's important, as you mentioned, it's important to know what requirements each specific institution is asking for, right? And then GPA, and then a portfolio. So we have a lot of artists that are watching this, and, portfolio as far as fine arts, poetry, writing, these are things. I mean, you're a published author, you're a poet, so that when you go to present these things, you can't just show up with 1 or 2 items. You have to have, a plethora of items that help you state your case in a sense. So you did mention, high school course requirements. In California, we talk about it as an A through G requirements. Obviously, it's the basics of English, sciences, and math. So people tell you, you hear students say, oh, I'm horrible at math, but it's important. It's important to be able to manage that, right? So what are some things that you recommend, especially obviously some classes. And I know, like, even for example, here at our academy, we help students create their artistic portfolio, but then you also have the entrance exams. You also have the PSATs that you need to take.
Your essays that you have to write.
A lot of high schools offer free PSAT. So what are some topics, if you remember, or if you can think of any topics as far as like the entrance exam that we could, that you could share? Or what was yours? Do you remember what yours was maybe when you were applying for college?
As far as like the entrance exams for like the essay portion that you would have to write, they'll ask you anything from what you enjoy doing to who are you?
Right.
Like, what makes you you? And I think that people have to understand when they run into these essay questions, the reality is that the university is trying to see is what makes you different and stand out from everyone else and makes you exceptional to where they would like to have you at their university. And so you have to write it in a way that is compelling, that is genuine, that is authentic, and it has to stick with you as an individual. And so in this process of getting all your applications together and pushing forward into trying to get into college, you have to also understand and know who you are in that time frame as a senior going into college. And they also ask things, what do you enjoy doing creatively? And if you are an artist, if you are a writer, if you like photography, if you like sports, if you like, I don't know, basket weaving, and that's something that you're passionate about, that's something that you need to put on paper so that they could see what makes you stand out from everyone else who's just trying to get into this school.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of times too, they ask you, or they give you an opportunity to explain a gap in your academic progress or academic success. So for example, let's say, there was a death in the family and your grades completely took a hit because of that. So there are essays and there are prompts that are available where you can express that and say, hey, I had a situation in my family and it impacted me this way and it affected my grades this way. And so they allow you to state your case in regards to any gaps or any fluctuations that you might have had on your academics. And so a lot of times students think that, oh, I had, a 4.2 GPA up to my sophomore year, and then something happened and now it's a 2.8, It's like, hey, they might still take you, like they might still accept you into the college because you're able to explain what that altercation or what that situation was that kind of took a course in your grades.
Yes.
So and for those of you watching, we're also going to have a writer's workshop. So we'll be having a writer's workshop and we'll just be discussing, topics on how to write, how to make your essays compelling, how to make these life experience, just pop out on paper. So what are some important resources on campus that as a student, for example, like I didn't know where half of these places were on my campus, but what are some things that you as a college admin and former student, like what are some resources on campus that you suggest everyone should know?
I think first and foremost, you need to know where the Student Resource Center is. So that would be the place where your admissions is, where your guidance counselors are, where the financial aid office is, know where the bookstore is, know where the career development location is, because they'll do testing for you for free to help you understand your personality type and what careers might be best for you if you're not sure what you'd like to do. I always say definitely know where the library is and know how the library works, because I know for me personally, I went to UCSD and I paid for college myself. And so I had to figure out ways to not only pay for school, but to also get books. And as we all know, books are very expensive. So a lot of times that if you go to the library and you ask them what programs that they have they're called like interchange, or it's like an inter school type system where you could rent out a library book, which is your textbook, but you could rent it out for the entire semester. Okay. And if it's not available at your school, they work with other schools in the area to see if they have it. And sometimes they won't. Sometimes you have to be in the library every other week or every other day trying to rent out this book. But at the end of the day, you're getting the education that you need. So there's lots of resources. You just have to honestly dig and ask questions. There should also be stuff for incoming freshmen so that they get acclimated to the school that they're going to. They understand how to create their planning schedule. They understand where their classes are at, how to get involved, how to stay connected. And I think staying connected is very important, especially coming in as a freshman or even a transfer. It's very important for you to be connected to the school that you're at because, once again, it's a lot of kids on campus, so it's very easy to get lost in that group. Yeah, so you want to stay connected.
Yeah, and you hit a great point because I've encountered some incoming freshmen, college freshmen that bypass freshman orientation. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, this is a great opportunity where they literally make a one-stop shop for you to be able to get, like you said, acclimated to the campus, know the resources, potentially even meet your counselor, get your academic plan. I know a lot of times, Serena mentioned like, hey, you're able to take these classes that might sound interesting to you, but, we also have to be very adamant about taking classes that are progression towards graduation, because I know for me and you, like we were taking random classes and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then next thing you know, we had, 100 credits and we only needed 80 to graduate or whatnot. And so these are things that, right, like we love school and you're taking these grades. Don't skip orientation, right, Andy? Don't skip orientation. But these are, you, like Serena said, you get to actually take courses that you want other than, your basic GEs, general education requirements, which is your math, your English, your sciences.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to take, like we took sociology courses. I know my favorite class was sociology of crime and deviance. And so we're learning like all these, like, so I'm signing up for classes. And next, I completely ignored my academic plan. And so that's where
requirements.
Yeah,
right.
You have to really back in and be like, okay, it's fun, but you want to be able to stay on a path towards graduation, and you want to make sure that you are on that path towards graduation because you also want to get into your career, which is another point that you mentioned, is that career services on campus. That's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And I know that, for certain careers, you need to have some internship. You need to have some internship experience, so being able to attend these, be able to do that. So, and another thing too, in the student services, you have an opportunity to find out about programs like studying abroad, right? So Serena was mentioned earlier that she was able to study abroad in South Africa, and it's like, was able to like literally open up her network, not only locally, but internationally. And so that's something that that's something that I wish I would have done, is study abroad, but I didn't know, I didn't know about it. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Serena. And what is something that you would tell, and we didn't really give your background. So you, after high school, you went to LSU, and from LSU came back home, did the junior college route, and then to UCSD. What is something that you would tell your senior, college freshman self prior going into the college experience? What would you tell her?
To stay connected and to focus on the work versus the experience of college. I think that a lot of freshmen get caught up in just the experience and how much fun it is and how new it is and all these cool things they want to try out between classes and new friends and, sports, right? Because you haven't seen sports so big. And so you have to stay focused. You have to remember that the reason why you are there is to get an education, and it can be fun. It can be an all-encompassing great experience, but your first and foremost objective is to get the work done and do very well, live up to your potential.
Awesome.
Definitely.
No, that's great advice. And for anyone listening, keep that in mind. Marla, thank you so much for being here with us today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having a more in-depth sessions of each of these topics: financial aid, essay writing, admissions, the experience we have. I'm so excited for our panel where we'll be talking to different current students, where we will be talking about the experience. But we're going to get a little glimpse of that today. We're going to be talking to a current student, Makaia. She's a current student, and she's going to be joining us and sharing with us her experience thus far in college. Hi, Makaia.
Hi.
How are you? How's college life treating you so far? So tell us, what grade level are you in right now, and what is something that you learned literally going right into it?
Okay, so I go to Drexel University, so I'm considered a pre-junior. It's kind of just like the middle stage between sophomore and junior year. And I'm sorry, what was your other question?
And what is something that like overwhelmed you as you entered the college life?
Something that overwhelmed me was definitely like the amount of people that are there. Wow, you still kind of feel so alone. Like there's a lot of people around you, but it's kind of like you're in your own world, just trying to like get to your class or get back to your dorm. And it's really easy to kind of like get caught up in your own little world and not really like enjoy the entire campus for what it is, especially if you have like a lot of classes, a lot of things you're trying to juggle at one time.
Yeah. And so how, now that you are a pre-junior, how have you made that overwhelming feeling become something where now you feel part of the institution, you feel like a family on campus? What are some things that you do throughout your college experience that'll make it feel less lonely in such a crowded place?
Yeah. So since, the pandemic, I've been virtual, and that has kind of, I will almost say hinder, but not really, because my biggest asset at Drexel has been the resources, the people around me who are there to help me. Everybody's on my side. My advisors have been absolutely amazing. Like I literally just had a meeting with her the other day. I talk to her as often as I can, and it really just helps a lot to know that not only do these people see my name, but they see me as a person. They see me for who I am, and they care enough to not only talk to me, but like help me out and be there for me whenever I need it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, your college experience can be overwhelming, but if you seek out the right people, you seek out the right help, you're able to feel less overwhelming and you end up having a better college experience. So you spoke on your transition from in-person to virtual. So I know that there's a lot of people that, especially I talk to college freshmen, and they feel like they've missed out on an experience because they didn't get to be in person. What do you think are some things that are actually beneficial from being virtual first and then going in person? So for example, the workload or getting used to the workload, what do you think are some benefits from, being virtual and then transitioning back to, or being in person, then going virtual and then transitioning back to in person?
I would say it was actually not as bad as we expected it to be. Like we as a collective college student unit, yeah. I feel as though we were really scared about it, but once it started, it was kind of almost easy to get into the swing of things. Virtual learning allowed for us, especially like me and my friends that I talk to, it allowed for us to not only be in school, but have a better work-life balance. Yeah. So we were able to go to school and maybe participate in internships, or maybe get a part-time job, or just be at home with our families more. And I found that we had a richer quality of life just in that time of being distance learning rather than like in-person learning, even though we were missing out on like some of the community aspect of college. We were getting another benefit in that, like now we had a better work-life balance.
Right. So you speak on like the work-life balance. So now that you've had 2.5, almost 3 years under your belt in college, how has your college experience been? Let's talk about the in-person. So obviously virtual is something that you had no control over, but it sounds like it was a great experience. But what is something that the experience for you that has stood out from being in person?
In person was really amazing for me in that I got to like be free. Like a lot of people talk about how college is your first taste at freedom, and it really is. Like this was my first opportunity to see how I am in my own space. I've never really lived with less than like 5 other people. So being in a dorm, like basically alone, was very new. But it also taught me how I like to take care of my space, how I like to schedule my days, how I just like to live my life by myself without having to schedule it around other people. So that was the biggest takeaway from being on campus.
Yeah, and that's something that Serena touched on earlier, is like the life skills that you learn from going to college, you know, and having to fend for yourself, you know, having to, you know, clean up your own room or cook your own food, or like
grocery shopping gets
protective of your own space, you know. There's so much that you learn just from being in a college experience. So in retrospect, right, you came in and like you said, you had never lived with anyone. So now you live on campus. You went in and were living on campus. Now, obviously, you're virtual. How was the living on campus experience for you? Like, were there any extracurriculars, activities that you did? Are you part of any organizations on campus? What are some things that you seek out to make this be a more family cohesion type thing for you as far as like your college experience?
I love living on campus because there was a lot of like events for exactly that purpose, exactly with the purpose of bringing students together, networking, being a community. Like I think every month my RAs in my specific dorm had a meeting in the auditorium, and we would go down there. They had like donuts or sandwiches, and we would just have, first it would be kind of like an assembly, like with the announcements, then we'd do an activity to get to know each other. So even though I personally wasn't in a lot of extracurriculars or as much as I wanted to be, I still had that interaction with other people just from being on campus, like walking down the street and then seeing someone like in the Chick-fil-A line that's super long. And we're talking about how, wow, this Chick-fil-A line is so long today. And now we follow each other on Instagram. Now we're friends. Like,
yeah, and that's another thing. You guys have like literally a social connection at your fingertips, you know. So I know they have like these little pop-it socket thingies where you put a QR code and it like links everybody's social media. Like you are in a space where you're able to meet so many people. And like you said, it's very easy to feel like you're alone in a very crowded space. But it needs to be one of those things where it's like, help me help you, right? Like you can only get included as much as you want to be included. And so as you mentioned, you know, you seek out extracurricular activities. You mentioned an RA, and I had so many like memories of our RA and like little pizza parties and things like that. You know, that just made the college experience even more. And like we were able to learn everybody that was on our floor and things like that. So I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked, you know, our previous guest. What is something that you would tell your younger self? Obviously, for you, it's not that far off. For us, it was a while back, but for you, it was 3-4 years ago. What is something that you would have told senior Makaia before deciding on a college?
I definitely would piggyback and say, like, do your research, really know the campus environment. I feel like I lucked out in that I am at a school where I feel like every adult, every authority figure I come across really cares about me, really wants me to succeed, but it's not like that everywhere. So you really want to, like, especially like a campus visit, you really want to go and get a feel for the demographics, how the campus is run, how students interact, things like that. And I will also say, and I'm saying it to myself now for when I get back on campus, join more extracurriculars. There are so many opportunities to meet so many people and network. And it's fun. You're not graded on it. It's free most of the time. You can literally just go join and meet people and have fun and have a very solid foundation of support from it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Makaia, for sharing your experience. We've had some great panel guests today. We're going to get back together. I'm going to pass it on to Serena, and we're going to finish off here with just all these wonderful, mind you, women here today.
Yes, this has been great. Thank you so much, Makaia and Marla, for being here. And then Coach Patty just being, you know, our head college material coach. And Makaia didn't mention this, but she is actually part of my academy team as one of our youth development interns and teaching assistants. And she also won one of our scholarships. So we definitely pour back into our youth. And I'm so happy to have Makaia be a part of our team. But I had a question because, you know, at Words Beats in Life, we really try to make sure that we're fostering community, right? And the importance of community is just sometimes I feel like lost in translation, right? Because we all define community differently. So for me, like I actually really sought out community that looked like me and that could really help me learn my identity and who I wanted to be in this world because I didn't see it around me at Penn State's campus. Like I had to actively go seek it out. So for you all, like, is that something that is important to you? I mean, I guess, Makaia, let's start with you because you're currently in college, like, and I kind of understand the dynamic of Drexel, but
I don't even know where it is.
Yeah, right. It's in Philly. So yeah. So like, is having community in the sense of like home and comfortability in a group called your own important to you? And you know, and how did you seek that out if it is?
It was very important to me, especially being born and raised in DC. I'm very much a city girl through and through. I knew that I had to be in a city. I had to be somewhere where at least the residents looked like me, even if the students didn't look like me. And even though that was very important to me, I try not to just exclusively do things based on that. So like I joined a lot of clubs based on my major. I joined a lot of Black clubs. I also joined clubs that's like about travel, and those clubs look like everybody. Like it's so diverse because it's just a common interest that everyone has. And so eventually at my time being at Drexel, it sort of became less important to me because I have that foundation already, and there are so many people of so many different backgrounds that are only adding to it. So I just want to go out and see everyone.
That's awesome. Marla, what about you? Having community in this sense of like family?
Yes, I think that's a layered question. So for me,
Yeah.
when I went to LSU, my family's from New Orleans. So I wanted to make sure that wherever I went, I was close to family, just in case, right? I always had this like, just in case I need something or just in case there's an emergency, family won't be too far. So that was always something for me. And then eventually coming back home, you know, home is home here in San Diego in California. So just being close to family was a big thing. But I think that from family, I've created a group of friends and support systems that seem like family anyway. So I guess that is my community, right? We kind of pick and choose who our family will be in the long run. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I went about finding my community.
That's awesome. What about you, Patty?
Well, first off, this is why I seek out experiences like Words Beats in Life. So when I first moved to Baltimore, it was something that I felt, or just to the DMV area, I felt like I needed family. I felt like I needed a network of like-minded people. And so I went online and I looked up volunteer opportunities and I came across Words Beats in Life, and it just became a family, you know. But it's something that I know that in order for me to succeed, in order for me to acclimate to wherever I'm at, whether it's a new college, a new city, a new job, I have to seek out those connections because they're important to me. You know, having a community, having accountability, having just people that are like-minded around you is very important. And so I think we don't just seek it out when we go to college. We seek it out in everything that we do. You know, we seek it out in our friendships. We seek it out in our families, and we gravitate towards people that are like-minded. So it's very important for me to, and I think everyone should seek out community in any aspect of their life. So
great. That's awesome. I have one last question before we wrap up on this thought of community. And I know we talked a lot about, or at least touched on, you know, some people don't don't go to college because they feel like they don't have the proper support. I mean, I think the number one factor is not understanding what college is and then not knowing how you can afford it. But I feel like some people also feel like they don't have the proper support to make it through something that can be as rigorous as attending a 4-year university. So like, I'm just curious, like, in all of y'all's experience, like who was that person that really like pushed you to go to college, really, helped you throughout and supported you? Because I'm just interested. It's not always your parents, so I'm just interested to know, like, who might that have been for you all?
Well, for me, it was my counselor, and she was the first educated Latina that I came across. And I was first in my family to go to college, first in my family to graduate high school, go to college. And so I was literally in her office at all times, like, how do you do this? How do you fill this out? How do you, how do I apply here? And so because my parents didn't have a higher education, they weren't able to help me pass like 4th, 5th grade. And so I was literally in her office, and she was the main person that kept telling me, yeah, you can go to that school. Yeah, you can go here. Oh, you know what? And I had a teacher that told me I wouldn't make it far, and I had those same people too, that the naysayers, so you want to be able to be surrounded by the people that just pour into you. And for me, that was my counselor.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Patty. I'm so happy to hear that. What about you, Marla?
I think I gravitated to several people in the process. I'm a first generation college grad myself. So like Patty, like after a certain point, I kind of was on my own. I would say that besides my parents being supportive in the way that parents are supportive, I also had a lot of support from my college coaches. And they kind of pushed me at times where I wanted to quit. I remember specifically there was a time when I had transferred from the junior college to a 4-year university. And I pretty much came back and told my college coach, I'm done. Like, I don't like it here. I don't like playing here. They're not treating me fairly. I was very small minority in the school. And she just told me, like, you have to persevere. You have to push through it. Like, imagine your life in 10 years and you looking back and you never finished. And that aspect right there for me was enough to say, okay, I could get through this. It's a couple more years. I can get through it, and I can push this through, because God knows that I didn't. Honestly, like, sometimes you get into those modes where you're just like, I hate this class. I hate this teacher.
And I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah, today's the day that I am going to do something else. So, but you have to have those people who kind of like reel you back in and put things into perspective and get you back on track. And it was my family and my coaches. So
that's awesome. And Makaia, who's like, where are you finding your support from currently with school?
Well, school and learning have always been super important to me, like top tier list of priorities. And so it was always kind of like a given that I would go to college. I just was unsure of how financially. So for me growing up, my aunt was always like the most successful person in my life. And she always told me, like, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about anything. Just you keep going to school and you get those grades or whatever else you need to get in whatever college you want to get into, and we're going to make it happen. And I just always remembered that. And that allowed me to keep going, to keep striving all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, eventually when I got accepted into Banneker, so that I was able to have the knowledge of how to go to college, even though none of my family have ever been to college. And having them supporting me through that, even though they didn't really know anything at all, was really helpful. And knowing that even if I decide to go to Drexel, the most expensive school in the country, they are still on my side.
That's great, Makaia. Thank you so much. I know for me, it took a village. My dad, it was not a choice about college or even law school, but it really took a village to get me there and keep me there. And, much like Makaia, it wasn't really an option. It was always just like, where do you want to go, basically, and we'll make it work. But I do know when I was in school and I was struggling at certain points, my source of support was sometimes my line sister, who would proofread, essays and things, because she's a journalist and that was her thing. And then also just like I had a professor that looked out for the students of color in the liberal arts school. And when my dad's financial situation changed, he bought all my books so that I could stay and study and help me get, you know, other scholarships. So really just like using my words to say like I'm struggling and I need help. And my whole village and my community really showed up for me in many ways. And it continued through law school. And I really do attribute, you know, a lot of my success to them, because it was not just me. It was definitely not just me. So I definitely agree with all of you that it always doesn't come in the form of your immediate family, and many people can help get you where you are. And I just wanted to say thank you again, everybody, for being here. Patty, I know we have some upcoming events. You want to just touch on that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the writing workshop. We have a writing workshop. We have a financial aid panel where we'll be going more in depth about financial aid. And then we also have another panel, and it's every fourth Monday of, correct me if I'm wrong, Serena, I'm like, my notes, my phone died on me. I don't have my notes.
Every fourth Monday of the month, yeah.
Yes, so every fourth Monday of the month, we will be discussing different topics regarding college material. And so super excited for all our panelists. We have a lot more amazing men and women coming on and discussing, you know, what it is to become a college student and just be successful at it. And in the process, you know, be transparent about the vulnerabilities of it, because we all go through them, as we saw today. Like, we've all been through the same struggles, and, you know, we're all here and we made it through. So again, you know, we want to thank our sponsors, Herb Block Foundation, Arts Forward Fund, DC Commission, Arts and Humanity, and PEPCO. And again, Marla, thank you. Makaia, thank you. Serena, it's a great academy that we have. If you guys want to register for the academy, wblinc.org/academy. It's on the little screen there. So you guys, again, there's so many resources, a community-based organization that I love to be a part of, and I'm enjoying being a part of. And again, it's fellowship, but also resources for anyone that would like to be a part of it. So Serena, you want to close us out?
Yeah, so that was a great exit. Thanks, Patty. Like Patty said, our next event is November 22nd. It is an essay writing workshop. So you'll have to RSVP to me at academydirector@wblinc.org. We want to keep that one more interactive, so we just want to know who's in the room. But this is a way to really be able to hone in on how to write these compelling admissions essays that Marla and Patty were talking about. But also, you can remix those for scholarship essays. So we're going to touch on all these things, and it's literally a cheat code. Like, don't copy and paste, but there's a way to use the same base for everything that you need. So we're going to help you with really working on these writing skills so you can get into these schools you want and really put your best efforts forward. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.